Here's what's coming up on episode 71 of the Big Seance podcast. Marla Martenson.
To balance things out, I really excel of the shallowness that matchmaking can bring. You know, I work with the high-level guys, the rich guys who want the hot women, so they're pretty demanding. So I started delving into the spiritual aspects of my life, and we love it so much that we start going berserk and taking every class we can all around town, all around Los Angeles. So we're going to see channelers, we're learning how to use the pendulum, we're doing candle magic, she's bringing over a Ouija board to my house. And I was watching videos. There was this one guy on YouTube who said, you know, it could take up to 30 minutes, no pain, no gain. And I'm like, oh, I can't sit here for 30 minutes. When I'd asked my angel, whose name is Mirth, why can't I use it alone? And she said energy. She'd spell the word energy. So you guys, I did some of this stuff for you, so you don't have to.
But you said that you don't regret it, though, right?
No, I don't regret it. It was the most painful thing I've ever done. It was, but then I was willing to go back. You know, I went back for another. I was going to go 5 times, but my husband was so pissed that I was spending the money that I had bruises all over my body. But I'm like, I have to go to get the full effect. Listen, well, I spent the money and I got a great chapter out of it, at least.
Welcome to the Big Seance podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the seance. How is everybody today? I hope you are all well. Since we last talked, I had a great time at the Kansas City Paranormal Conference. I was able to spend some time meeting some cool people, talking about nerdy stuff, and my parents, along with a cousin of mine, even got to participate as well. Jason Kupsik did a nice job organizing the event this year. He's done it several years. I did get a chance to do some mini interviews with some of the speakers that weekend, and so look forward to hearing those soon. I'm not sure if I'll sprinkle some of those interviews into the next few episodes or if I'll just put them out in their own episode, but either way, you can look forward to those in the future. Something else you can look forward to is a meeting I had with friend and listener Denise Seah. She is active in the Big Seance parlor, so you've probably seen Denise there if you're in the parlor as well. The same weekend of KC Paracon, she was kind enough, along with Rob Garcia, who I just met, to organize a small and private investigation of the Alexander Majors house near my old college stomping grounds in Kansas City. With us, we also had Caden, who's a cool guy, and Kathy, and this whole group of paranerds runs the tours and investigations of both the Alexander Majors and the John Warnell house in the area. And it was a really nice time, and I want to thank Denise and Rob for doing that. Denise let me use her dowsing rods, and so for the first time, I used dowsing rods at that investigation. I have it all on audio, and so I'll put together some highlights eventually. I haven't gone through it all yet, so who knows? Maybe I have some messages waiting for me. I cannot record this episode without thanking Lana Carbon of Carbon Lilies, who surprised me with possibly the greatest gift a paranerd interested in spirit communication could ever receive. And it was sitting on my doorstep about a week ago. Lana designed and built a very special Victorian seance talking board. It is obvious that a lot of love and energy went into this board, and I'll cherish it forever. You can find pictures of Lana's talking board in the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook. Thank you, Lana. Well, today I bring you my conversation with Marla Martenson. She has a fascinating and hilarious story about her recent journey to enlightenment. And you'll hear me talk about how my own journey, I feel, relates to hers a bit. But she's also a matchmaker in Beverly Hills. So how interesting is that? Toward the end of our conversation, Marla mentions an upcoming appearance on George Norrie's Coast to Coast AM show, but it actually already happened. She was on the George Norrie's show on August 7th on Coast to Coast, so you can check that out if you'd like. After Marla's interview, Tim Prasil has another Spectral Edition for you, and I've got some more awesome listener feedback this week. So here we go. Oh, and Marla asked me to make sure I poured the tea for her appearance here in the parlor. And I probably would have poured the tea anyway, but I'll go ahead and make it extra special this week just for Marla. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome Marla Martenson here at the Big Seance, and I'm going to read her bio for you, and I can't wait to chat with her. Born in Tacoma, Washington, the city of destiny, Marla was destined to move to Los Angeles, where she shoots her arrow of love on a daily basis as a professional matchmaker, helping countless couples connect with their soulmates. She is the author of 2 other memoirs, Diary of a Beverly Hills Matchmaker and Hearts on the Line. Marla has been interviewed on The Today Show, WGN Chicago Morning News, San Diego Living, Urban Rush, CTV Calgary, Better TV, KUSI San Diego Morning Show, and over 100 radio shows, including Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Her husband, Adolfo, has asked her, Marlita, do you want to go to the moon too? Referring to her many interests, a true Gemini. Yet nothing has fascinated her like her profound adventure far beyond the moon and into the vastness of cosmic spirituality. I also want to point out that she has a YouTube show called Cosmic Conversations that you will want to check out, definitely. And she also teams up with our friend Karen A. Dahlman on YouTube occasionally for Women of Ouija. And I know many of you already follow those videos. You can find Marla's website at marlamartenson.com. Welcome to the parlor, Marla.
Hello, Patrick. Hi, everybody.
We're excited to have you. I know that we already have some crossover. People listen to you and follow you, so this will be cool. Now, as the bio states, you have your hand into so many things, including playing Cupid for countless couples. But today we're going to specifically talk about your book, The Buddha Made Me Do It, a field guide to enlightenment. I've read it. I love it. And there are so many questions that I want to ask about the journey that you chronicle there. But first, I think we need to really make sure people know what your book is about. So please, please share with us, kind of a synopsis of that journey and what the book is.
Yeah, this was a really interesting journey writing this book because I've written 5 books. I had, before my other memoirs, I wrote 2 dating advice books, Excuse Me, Your Soulmate is Waiting, and another one. I guess it's forgettable now, right? No, Good Date, Bad Date. That's what it was. But so I started in on writing memoir with my first one, Diary of a Beverly Hills Matchmaker. And since I'm a matchmaker, I'd write about my life as a matchmaker. People wanted to know, but I'd always have a little bit of my spiritual stuff in there, like affirmations and stuff. And then after my last memoir, Hearts on the Line, which was, I think, brought out in, I think, maybe 2012 or so. I thought, okay, I'm a writer. I should probably write another book because I love writing, but I didn't have really anything to write about. And I was kind of tired about writing about matchmaking, to tell you the truth. I've been a matchmaker for 15 years and I have so many other interests. I'm like, a little bit tired of this subject right now. So, to balance that, well, two reasons. To balance things out, I really excel of the shallowness that matchmaking can bring. You know, I work with the high level guys, the rich guys who want the hot women. So they're pretty demanding. So I started delving into the spiritual aspects of my life a lot more. And then what happened was my husband and I bought a house in 2011. And so I started purging some things, knickknacks and stuff. And I ended up getting rid of a Buddha, a little statuette that was a wooden Buddha that a neighbor had given me. I don't know why I got rid of it. I probably just thought I have too many knickknacks. I've got to purge. And it was my Buddha, but of course my husband thought it was his too, I guess, because he'd never even asked about that darn Buddha until I got rid of it. And he comes to me, goes, Marlita. He calls me Marlita because he's from Mexico. Marlita, whatever happened to that Buddha, that Buddha that our neighbor gave us? And I said, oh crap. I said, it's probably still packed in the garage from our move. I think there's a couple boxes in there. I don't know. He goes, well, you better not have gotten rid of it because you always get rid of stuff without asking me. And I'm like, no, I didn't get rid of it. And I'm like, oh, all right. So I hope I can say on this.
You might get a bleep, but it'll be even funnier.
Oh, crap. Okay. So I get in my little Toyota and I say, all right, I'm going to check out all the spiritual hot spots around town and try to find replace it, because I had seen those same Buddhas for sale in some of these shops, right? In Los Angeles, we've got a lot of metaphysical shops. So I go over to Hollywood, I go over to all these places. I can't find one anywhere. And every day, I even went back to the Goodwill where I dropped it off to see if I could find it. If nobody bought it yet, I would buy it back. And every day he's like, hey, did you find that Buddha yet? I'm like, no, but I'm still looking in the garage. I'm still looking. And then one day I said to myself, okay, I'm going to try one more place. And I was Googling metaphysical shops in the valley. I live in the San Fernando Valley, and I found one more shop, and I say, okay, if this place doesn't have one, that's it. I'm giving up. I'll face the music man. My husband's a composer. So I go into this place called the Imagine Center, and it was just this lovely little retail shop with crystals and everything. And of course, they didn't have any Buddhas, but they did have a flyer that advertised classes that were given by the owner, a woman called Goddess Tahita. And the classes looked really cool, only $15 a class. And they had classes in connecting with your guides, kind of psychic development stuff and abundance classes. So I called my friend Julie, my BFF, who lives like 3 blocks from me. She's a ghostwriter for celebrities. And I said, Julie, hey, I couldn't find any Buddhas, but I found a great place for us to take a class. What do you think? She goes, yeah, I'm in. So we start taking classes at the Imagine Center, and we love it so much that we start going berserk and taking every class we can all around town, all around Los Angeles. So we're going to see channelers. We're learning how to use the pendulum. We're doing candle magic. She's bringing over a Ouija board to my house. We just dove head first. And I ended up becoming certified. I'm a Reiki master now. I'm a crystal healer. I connect with my angels on my board. I just went a 2-year accelerated, quick trip there, and just unreal. So Julie, being, she also writes memoirs for celebrities, but she said, hey, wouldn't it be great if she says, I need to do something fun. Let's write a book together on our spiritual journey, on all these things that we've tried, all these modalities, and tell people about it, because some of the things were really crazy and great stories. And I said, okay, we'll write it from 2 perspectives. So we both I start on my first chapter, and that was in January 2 years ago. And I'm like, okay, I can't wait to read your chapter. And she's like, yeah. It's coming along. And then, February comes. How's your chapter going? Yeah, I'm working on it. So I said, well, I'll just start writing in my second chapter. March comes along. How's your chapter, Julie? Yeah. I'm working on it. I'm like, I just start working on the third chapter. And then in April, she said, Marla, I can't do it. I have too many other things I have to do. I can't do it. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just do it by myself. So, but she's in it. And she let me use her stories and so she's in there with me. So me and Julie, it's a fun book. I mean, I love it. I've read it. I hope this doesn't sound stuck up, but I've read my own book like 5 times because it's so fun to reread my adventures that I went through. So anyway, that's the story of The Buddha Made Me Do It. That's how it came to be. And there might be a sequel here because I'm still doing a lot of fun stuff that,
I can imagine that was going to be one of my questions if you were continuing the journey since the book.
Yes, and I think I might start it with my court case. I did a video about being sued by one of my clients, and I was in a jury trial, and I think that's a good opening to a new book. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Julie may not have had a hand in the book, even though she's in it, but how would this journey have turned out if you didn't have Julie?
Well, I think the book is a lot better with Julie in it because she has her own path, and there's some stories about her dating, and she's single. I'm married, and she's single, and she was obsessed with her neighbor, and he wasn't interested in her, so she did a few things to try to, magical things to try to turn that around. And I don't think the book would have been the same without her. And the whole journey, we did things on our own. We didn't take every class together. I went ahead and got certified as a crystal healer by myself and did the Reiki and went to some channelers. And then she did some things on her own, but then we did take a lot of things together. So it was fun. Yeah, she's definitely I thank her for this book because she gave me the idea as well.
Most of my listeners will probably already know this, but I want to share how your journey in this book relates to my life. If you go back 8 or 9 years, I was just beginning to be really fascinated with the paranormal and the spiritual, and a book and a TV show really kicked off what I've always called my spiritual shift. And a part of that was being obsessed with learning and reading, being obsessed with finding answers from psychic mediums, learning about life on the other side. But it happened more in a paranormal investigation kind of way. I really wanted to communicate daily with spirits. I was trying channeling, astral travel. I was kind of crazy. And though I found answers and success at some things like EVP and my paranormal investigation team had cool experiences and evidence, I crashed and burned with others. Over the course of a few years, I just burned myself out because it takes a lot of time and energy to learn and develop. And in my case, it's very frustrating when you don't get results, like with the Ouija board, for example. Have you not experienced any of this?
Yeah, it's interesting. It is a lifetime of study. I mean, there's so much out there, and especially since I'm in the healing arts now, I can be studying that forever. But when Julie first brought over the board, and she didn't bring over a Ouija board, but she had downloaded these beautiful like talking boards off the internet and then had them made on some tack board or something. So they were quite big, and she brought 2 different versions, and she said, look what I got. And so we sat down, and we never had done it before. I mean, I'd never tried it. I wasn't one of those kids who had a Ouija board. I didn't know anybody who had, so never tried this before. But we staged it, lit the candles and said a little protection prayer and the stuff. And then immediately we put our fingers on this little planchette that she brought, and it immediately started moving. And we were connecting and talking to the spirit. He called himself Secret Spirit. I think it was a trickster. And then after that, the next time my angel came in, and I was like, wow, this is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me in my life. But then I wanted to do it on my own because I didn't want to call Julie over every time I wanted to try it. She'd come over like once a week and we'd do it. But so I sat there, I bought some boards on my own. I bought, I think a couple of them. And then I would sit there every night for I only gave myself about 10 or 15 minutes because then your back starts hurting. You're like, oh, sitting there, come on, move. And it wouldn't. And I was watching videos. There was this one guy on YouTube who said, you know, it could take up to 30 minutes, no pain, no gain. And I'm like, oh, I can't sit here for 30 minutes. And I would ask Mirth, when I was with Julie talking on the board, when I'd ask my angel, whose name is Mirth, why can't I use it alone? And she said energy. She'd spell the word energy. Now, along the way, I started getting attunements in Reiki and different energetic attunements. And she said I needed to meditate. So I was doing all that. And then after about 8 months of trying, one night I was sitting there and it started to move, and I can do it myself. Now I can jump on it. It'll start moving right away, and I can communicate. And I do like using it by myself. I know a lot of people don't. They'll use it with a partner, but I don't have anybody to do it with. My husband's like, don't even show me that thing. So
I use it by myself all the time, but I've had no communication from it, so that's a different story.
So you haven't been able to use it yet, get it to move on your own?
Absolutely none, which is why I'm fascinated with learning kind of what that first moment was like from you when
I was
all
so
of a sudden
happy.
It worked.
But I do think it is energetic. So, and clearing out, I'm real into nutrition, and I'm a vegan. And so I have a real, there's no chemicals in my body. I'm very clean that way, juice a lot, and then do a lot of the energy work. And that's what it took for me, was the energy. It's the energy, I think it is what it probably is. So maybe if you started doing some Reiki or getting some attunements, that would help. And then a lot of meditation, I guess. But it is frustrating. It's frustrating. Like, why does it work for some people? And then I'm sure it does work alone for some people. I see Ryan Espesh doing it by himself. He's smoking a cigarette, so
I know.
he's doing it. So it's not, not an absolute, but that for me, it seemed to be that I needed to be more of a clear channel with a high energetic frequency.
Well, we have a mutual friend, Karen A. Dahlman, and it was through her that actually I was introduced to your videos and to you. I'd never heard of you before then. And, everyone here at the Big Seance loves Karen, but you guys are on the same coast and you get to hang out, and so I'm insanely jealous. Do you want to talk about how you both work with the Ouija and women of Ouija a little bit?
Yeah, this was fun. Now, you hadn't heard about me because I'm new on the scene. I've always been interested in the paranormal and stuff like that, but I just kind of came out of the closet with it recently and with this book and stuff. And even my husband was a little nervous. He's like, you better be careful because you have high-end clients and stuff. They might think you're crazy, what's going to happen. And I'm like, well, I don't tell them about it, but at the same time, I have to be true to myself. And I really love this stuff. So it makes me happy. And
I can relate to that with education, being a teacher and also being a para-nerd.
That's right. So, so the way I met Karen was we've both been guests on George Nouri's show and on also not only Coast to Coast, but Beyond Belief, which is on Gaiam TV. And so I had been a guest on there. So I watch George's shows a lot. And at the time, I didn't have anybody except for Julie to do the board with. And my husband was upset about it. And I didn't have anybody really to talk to. I was thinking, God, I wish I could meet somebody that also loves the board and is not afraid of it and that feels the same way as I do, somebody to talk to. And I was watching George's show and I was looking through the episodes and I saw one that said Ouijaologist, Karen Dahlman and the Ouija board. So I watched the episode and I was like, oh my God, I love this woman. She would be a great friend for me. Let me contact her. So I contacted her on Facebook and she was so generous and jumped on Skype with me. And we had a great conversation. We showed each other our boards and we just chatted like old friends. And then from there, she lives probably about 2 hours from me. So we would get together. And there's another lady in LA called Linda Salvin, who's a world famous psychic, and she uses the Ouija board. And she lives real near me. So we get together and do the board. But Karen, Linda, and I got together one day at Linda's house and had a whole day of Ouija boarding and messages. And Karen and I have just had a blast together. We went to see Bashar, who is a channel. He's located in LA. And we don't get together as much as we'd like to because of the traffic in California. So we're a couple hours apart, but we have been able to do that. And then we have some more Women of Ouija videos coming up soon.
I love them. I love when they come out. Now, in the book, you talk about a time when you put the board away for a while, right?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, I ended up getting some low energy attachments. And I was, my husband would warn me, "Hey, you're going to get possessed. You're going to get in trouble using that thing." And I was like, "Oh, you're crazy. I've only had great messages," which is true. But there have been a few tricksters, and I have jumped on boards. Like if I'm at some curiosity shop or something, then there's a board there I've jumped on, and I would be at a lot of events and things with different people there and when you are at those places, there's a lot of spirits around and energies. And I ended up getting 10 negative. I had an infiltration of 10 negative attachments, and I felt it come through my crown chakra and paralyze me at one point. And my guides had been disabled. And Goddess Tahita, the owner of the Imagine Center, was able to remove them and help me. But she said, you've got to not do any psychic or spiritual work for a couple weeks. And so I had to put the board away, and it was a time of reflection when I thought, should I be using the board? Should I do these videos with Karen? What should I do? And I thought, no, you know what? And I talked to Linda about it. I talked to Karen about it. And I talked to some other people who are channelers and things. And I decided, no, I just need to always make sure I protect myself. And I love it too much. And I know that the connections I get are real. They're for my angel Mirth. I have no doubt. And it's been over 2 years, and nobody's tried to take me over. Like one psychic had said, "Oh, they act nice so that they can eventually take you over." But I just don't believe that. And I think a lot of people have these low energy attachments. I mean, look at people on the freeway freaking out, people in the line at the bank yelling. I think especially if people are drinking or using drugs, we do get these attachments and they affect our moods and things, but we've got to clear them out. It's nothing. And a lot of people that I spoke to all had the same experience. So in the end, it wasn't a big deal. It freaked me out, but it wasn't a big deal. And I just have to learn have to make sure I'm protected. And it's just like, anybody maybe spam. It's like a spammer coming into your inbox or something. You didn't invite them in, but they're in your email.
So I'm guessing you're just learning to see the signs of those things. And you probably needed to have that experience to, know what it was like, know what to avoid, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Goddess Tahita, she told me she's an amazing healer at the Imagine Center. She owns it, and then she's a healer. She's so powerful, and she gets messages. I mean, she's tuned in, and she told me, "Marla, this was good that it happened to you as a healer, because now you know what it feels like when someone comes to you and they have an infiltration and I have had a couple clients that did have it. Yeah, I'm glad it happened. So I knew, and the signs were this. If anybody out there is thinking they might have something, I had stomach pains. I had a hardness in my solar plexus. Like I didn't know what it was. It was like, this is weird. It just feels so hard. And then I kind of had some stomach pains, some bloating. I was constipated for a long time, and I hadn't changed my diet, and I'd take a bunch of fiber and water and nothing would help. And I'm like, this is very strange. And Goddess Tahita said that they will block your root chakra. And they come in, and then I could feel them coming right one night. It was so powerful. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be channeling. Somebody's coming in that wants to channel. And it was that main entity coming through my crown chakra. And I freaked out, and I grabbed my crucifix, and I'm like, get out of here. And I called in Jesus, and I called in Archangel Michael, and I said, get out. And I saged the whole place, and I saged myself, and I grabbed my, protection, my crystals, and they left. But, and then Tahita removed them, and, then they came back. One came back, and I went one more time to get it removed. And I said, how did they come back? If you took them out, how did they find me again? And she says, there were still some fragments in your bedroom, and they wanted to reattach.
Can I assume that you would take the position that you could get these kind of energies from any tool that you would use in this area?
Yeah, I would think when you're dealing with, Now Tahita said, "Oh, are you using a board?" She had thought it could be from a board or from some psychic that I had been in contact with, or some people. And I had, with my show on YouTube, I do interview a lot of people, so people offer me readings, and I go, I just do a lot of things. So it's hard to say where, and it could have been in the book. Mirth gives a little. She's in there. She gives some messages, and she said, yeah, you jumped on a board and you didn't protect yourself, and that's what happened. So hard to say.
Yeah. So I cannot finish an interview without talking about the funniest chapter, which almost made me pee, in your book. And you don't have to really go too much into it if you don't want to. I would understand that, but it's chapter 2, and it's called The Bamboo Beating. Now, recently, I was interviewed on Paranormal Underground Radio in the dark, and they asked me what book I was reading at the time, and I told them it was The Buddha Made Me Do It, and I was totally trying to tell them your bamboo beating story, but I was failing miserably, and so I apologize for that if you ever hear it, but it's so very funny. Do you want to share a little bit about the bamboo beating, or should we keep it a surprise?
No, well, I have to say I am so happy that you thought it was hilarious, because that's my favorite chapter. And when I was writing it and when I read it, I just crack myself up. I
messaged you as soon as I was done. Does anybody else message you as soon as they're done with that chapter?
I'm like, when people read, I'm like, well, what was your favorite chapter? And I'm waiting for them to say the bamboo beating. And then if they don't say it, I'm like, hey, what you think about it, But yeah, I mean, I tried all these different modalities, and I let a Chinese, what is it? A doctor, or, herbal doctor, doctor of Chinese medicine. That's what it is. Let him beat me with bamboo. It's something similar to like getting acupressure or Rolfing or something, where you're releasing negative. Old, how you carry, how do you say it, Patrick? Old thought forms or feelings, or we carry this stuff in our cells, in our body, in our muscles. You want to release it, right? And so he was beating it out of me. And then I did go all the way, and you guys have to read it. I don't want to spoil it, because I let him do some other stuff to me. And I was like, if anybody, my husband said, anybody who would hear this would think you're insane. He's like, you lost all credibility with me, Marla.
Oh, and his responses in that chapter are just, oh my gosh.
So you guys, I did some of this stuff for you, so you don't have to.
But you said that you don't regret it, though, right?
No, I don't regret it. It was the most painful thing I've ever done. It was like insane. I was like, am I going to pass out? And, but then I was willing to go back. I went back for another. I was going to go 5 times, but my husband was so pissed that I was spending the money that I had bruises all over my body. But I'm like, I have to go to get the full effect, to get all the stress out of my system. And I'm like, well, I'm going one more time. And I did go one more time. But listen, well, I spent the money and I got a great chapter out of it, at least.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Are there any spirit communication tools or techniques that you haven't tried that you'd like to? Like, I guess I'm probably thinking more on the paranormal investigation side, since that's more the kind of the nerd I am. But, I know you've used the pendulum, and like, have you ever thought about spirit box, EVP? I'm sure you've been to seances and things like that.
I'd love to try that. I don't have one of those boxes. I got to find someone with one, because I'd love to go on an investigation. And one of my goals, but dreams is I keep telling my husband I want to stay in a haunted bed and breakfast somewhere. So I want to do that. I love that stuff. I love graveyards. I just like going there and thinking about those people, what their lives were like and stuff. And I like all that stuff. But I, as you see in the subtitle, A Field Guide to Enlightenment, it's spelled LITE, because I'm not saying I'm enlightened, but because I keep it light and I keep it fun. That's what it should be when we're delving into this stuff. We don't want to I'm not into the evil stuff or anything like that, but I like to keep everything light and fun. But I am fascinated by ghosts and paranormal stuff and UFOs. I like to watch those documentaries on TV and see the UFO sightings and and all of that. Well, channeling, I'd really, my fault is I don't meditate enough, and I'm like one of those hyper people, so I need to meditate more because I would love to channel. That's what I'm doing. Karen says we are doing a form of channeling on the board, but I would like to get off the board.
Well, I was going to say, you have mentioned that you are getting to the point where you aren't depending on the tools as much, right? And I know that that's something that Karen has said too.
Well, like when I'm using the board, I can kind of know what's coming up, what's going to be said. I can kind of hear it, but I still need it. But it's kind of fun. I can just write the letters on a piece of paper and use my finger too. I don't need a board and a planchette. I could write letters anywhere and then use my finger. I noticed that. I did that in the Barcelona airport. I was in Barcelona last year and our plane was delayed and I was bored. So I pulled out a piece of paper, wrote out and then my husband's just looking at me like, oh God, I hope nobody sees what you're doing.
That's a hell of a lot different than a word search or crossword puzzle or something.
It is. It's a paranormal word search, right?
Are there any tools or anything like that you definitely would stay away from?
I don't know. Are there any that you can think of that I haven't used? What else is there that I think the Ouija board is the most feared?
Well, right. That's probably the most feared. I don't know that I can necessarily think of. I was assuming that you would say no. So
yeah, I haven't found one yet, but I was reading that article you posted on Facebook about that doll
Ruby.
Ruby, yeah.
Ruby, yeah.
Yeah, some of those dolls can be scary. They've done movies on those and stuff. I'd like to hold that doll and see if I get anything. I'm not too scared. I protect myself, and I'm not too scared of things. But then, of course, after I had the infiltration that I had, I mean, it wasn't like demons or anything. They just said they were, because there's a lot of low level spirits around, and so that's all it was. So it wasn't like The Exorcist or anything, but it was quite interesting.
So you now offer crystal healing and Reiki services. So tell us, I'd love to know, how long did it take you to develop the confidence to just jump into doing that professionally, and put that on your site and commit to that?
Yeah, it's something I do on the side because matchmaking is still my full-time job. I own a business, so I work from home, but I have a really beautiful space at home where I do the healings. But I'm a member of the healing team at the Imagine Center. So I do healings over there with my team members. We have every Tuesday night, there's a healing, people can come in for a healing, and there's 2 practitioners. So I do that once a month. And then I have some people who will come to my home. And I felt, I guess after I got my certifications and I was on the healing team at the Imagine Center, and I started giving healings to Julie and to my husband and to my dog and to my mom. And I love it. It's so beautiful. It's just so fun. I'm so glad I added that to my repertoire. And if anybody's in the LA area, look at my website, come in for a healing. You'll love it.
That's cool. We've mentioned, a few things already in your site, but you can mention it again. But, take this time to tell us maybe what's coming up, any projects, or for sure where people can connect with you. So promote.
Yeah, yay! I'm going to be on, I will be on Coast to Coast AM with George Noory in August. I think it's August 7th, or I'll be posting it. So if there's any George Noory fans, I know people like that. And what else? My website is www.marlamartenson.com, and everything is there. And I think I am going to start writing a new book. I just probably wait till the fall to start doing that. It's such a big undertaking to do that. Karen Dahlman and I are going to be having a lot more videos together. And, I think that's about it.
Cool. Well, I love following you. You are such a interesting, especially I've never ever, when I've ever been in the world of even learning things about matchmaking or anything. It's just it's so funny to hear about it. And, how, there's, I should have asked you this earlier, but how there's, sometimes a conflict with your journey right now to enlightenment and, the matchmaking and stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, I posted a video about my jury trial that a client had sued my partner and I made a video about it. And It does. It's like was calling in my angels. It was so funny because when we were sitting in court, this guy wanted $35,000 out of us and we'd given him great service and we won the case, but it was draining. We had to pay a lot of money for attorney's fees. I'm sitting there like shooting daggers out of my eyes into the back of his head. And my partner is like, oh, I was sending him angels and love.
You canceled each other out.
Yeah, I was like, but we won. But I was like, oh, I wanted to send him love, and the attorney that was just lying would just get up and lie about us. And I was like, you SOB, and I'm like sending him darts, mental. And then I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry. Love, angels, infiltrate him with love. And I told my partner, she's like, no, I was sending lots of love. I'm like, oh, good. I hope it overrode the darts I was sending to the back of his head. I'm only human, all right?
That is so true. I think we all have our moments. Well, Marla, you rock. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks
yeah, everybody needs to follow Marla. She's fun and interesting and entertaining.
All right, guys, I'll see you online. Bye. Angel kisses.
You're listening to the Big Seance Podcast with Patrick Keller. Look for us on iTunes and be sure to check out bigseance.com for more discussion.
Welcome to Spectral Edition. I'm Tim Prasil. In many of the ghost reports that I've come across, the backstory to the ghost is there was a murder, but it's never been solved, and so that spirit roams until the culprit is found. This is one of those stories, but there is a unique twist to this one in that the murder victim is also a police officer. This was published on October 13th of 1891 in the Laren's Advertiser from South Carolina, and the headline is An Uncanny Visitor. Kansas City, Missouri, October 2nd. Kansas City, Kansas now comes to the front with a regulation ghost story. It is not one of the common, ordinary ghosts which prowl around deserted houses, but a full-fledged ghost of a policeman, uniform and all. 2 years ago, a policeman, Henry James, was on the beat leading toward the Southwest Boulevard and was very regular in passing such points, so much so, in fact, that the people used him in place of a clock, for they knew that when James passed, it was a certain hour of the night or day, as the case may be. One morning, James was found lying dead on the sidewalk, with an ugly hole in the back of his head. He had been struck with a pickaxe, which was afterwards found nearby covered with hair and blood. Not the slightest clue was ever found which would point to the perpetrator of the deed, and after a time the matter was relegated to the annals of mysteries. It seems, however, that James did not rest easy in his grave, and it is now said that his form can be seen on a moonlight night patrolling the beat just as he did in former days when he was in the flesh. The people living on the beat say that he can be heard walking with the same measured tread as formerly, and he appears as plainly as if he were alive. He is never seen from the street, but always from the windows of the houses. When the people try to get nearer and see what it is, the form vanishes out of sight and appears no more that night. The other policemen were at first disposed to scoff at the so-called ghost, but one night one of them saw the specter. And now the chief is compelled to have two men walk the beat, for the patrolman will not go alone. One now has to go to protect the other. It is difficult to find anyone who has seen the ghost, but all can tell what their neighbor saw and what they heard. They say that James walks along every night at the same hour and disappears at the spot where his body was found. The appearance is at 1:20 o'clock in the morning, and it is supposed that he was murdered at that hour. Sometimes I do backup research on some of these ghost reports just to find out additional information. I haven't done any backup research on the case of the murder of policeman Henry James, so I sort of tossed that out there. If you're interested in doing research, I find it really fascinating to do this. Just make sure you don't confuse policeman Henry James with the author Henry James, author of little things like Turn of the Screw, and a few other very famous ghost stories. You've been listening to the audio version of Spectral Edition. I'm Tim Prasil. I have close to 300 of these ghost reports, all published in actual U.S. newspapers between the years of 1865 and 1918. I post one each Wednesday on my website, which is called The Merry Ghost Hunter. I hope you stop by.
Thanks for joining us for the Big Seance podcast. We'd better get back to the table while there's still some candlelight left.
International Podcast Day is September 30th, and you can help spread the word. International Podcast Day is dedicated to promoting podcasting worldwide. You may be asking, what can I do to get involved? It's pretty simple. First, head over to internationalpodcastday.com and check the suggestions. Second, use hashtag Podcast Day to join in the conversation. Remember September 30th. Now, let's start the conversation.
I have 4 iTunes reviews to report on this week, and that's the most we've had in one time, I think, so that's kind of cool. 712 says, love it. iTunes finally let me leave a review. Love the show, and I had such a great time meeting you in person at the Haunted America Conference in Alton, Illinois this June. So I know from that review that this is Heather. So thank you, Heather. She also says, look forward to getting through all of your shows. I know she's been making her way through the back catalog, so that's cool. I'd be curious to know where you are in the catalog now, Heather. Saint Works Art says, a classic feel with classy presentation. Patrick Keller sits you down in a parlor for the mind as he covers all the fantastic paranormal subjects as well as interviews with special guests. The podcast is clean, family-friendly, and more importantly, entertaining. Great work, Patrick. Thank you, Saint Works Art. I really try to go for classy, and I'm also glad to hear that you really are getting that parlor feel that I always try to paint a picture for in everybody's minds. Corbin Slasher says, Patrick is the best. Oh my gosh, thank you. This is by far my favorite podcast. Patrick has the podcast world down pat. He has amazing guests, great stories, and his show flows so well you will never get bored. I consider this man the best in paranormal spirit podcasts. OMG. If you are not listening, you need to be subscribing right now. Thank you for your hard work, Patrick. Oh my gosh, Corbin. I'm not going to be able to get my head out the door after I record this. Papa Say, and I think that's how I would say it, says, very good show. I am greatly relieved to find your show. Great show. Keep it up. You guys rock. And thanks for keeping the iTunes reviews up. Continue to make sure you subscribe in iTunes, but now subscribe in iHeart. Since we're in iHeart, we're in TuneIn and Stitcher. Wherever you listen to, make sure you're subscribed, which I'm sure most of you are, but subscribing and the reviews are so helpful, and so I appreciate it. Around 3 weeks ago, I received an email from Brandon Jacko, and actually I had to apologize to Brandon because somehow I just found his email. But Brandon was the one who called in a few weeks ago about being able to dream up a guitar riff and then play it after waking up. Well, he realized he never left his name in that message. If you remember, I wasn't sure who to thank for that message because there wasn't a name, but that was Brandon. And it turns out he's also a film director, and he just recently heard my interview with Tim Stevens. So thanks for sending an email, Brandon. I love hearing from listeners and hearing about your passions and what the topics are that everybody listens to and likes the most. I also heard from another iHeart Radio listener, which is exciting, Rachel Shores. I'm truly excited about the paranerds that I've been connecting with from iHeart Radio. I love it. Thanks for the kind words and the review, Rachel. I want to leave you with a fun challenge today. I'd like to see if you would take a selfie as you're listening to this episode or any episode of the Big Seance podcast. And I'd love to see how many joggers we have, how many people listen at the office, maybe while you're making dinner, walking the dog. Send me your selfie, or even better, post it in the Big Seance parlor on Facebook. But, to be able to do that, you've got to be in the parlor first. So request to be added if you haven't already, and I'll get you approved. Or you can email your selfie to patrick@bigseance.com. I think this will be fun. Send in your selfies. Where are you at when you're listening to the show? I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Peace out. For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com. Just click on the Big Seance podcast logo or find it in the menu. You can also find and subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn Radio, and iHeartRadio. Do you have any comments or feedback? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how to get your voice in a future show. Or you can call my feedback line, 7755-TELL-ME. That's 775-583-5563. Interested in learning how to promote and share the podcast? Go to bigseance.com/share. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.